Now, let the uprising begin.
There are only two genders, and one of them is right here. It's the box that rocks. This is the Angela Box Show on AM 1070 and FM 1033. The Answer.
Hello, hello, hello. Once again, all my fellow patriots and you filthy leftist stalkers out there, you're listening to the Angela Box Show. Lots of first world problems today for you. Before we jump into the trial I really am interested in and all the other stuff. Okay. We're having so many issues. Okay, I just redid my studio. And the reason you're seeing, if you're watching live, you get to see the video now. And people for the longest time, like my producer was like, why haven't you done this before? I'm like, because I'm lazy and I don't get it. So I've had these people come in, Becky Blaylock and her husband Kevin of New Frontier Creative, fantastic people, awesome patriots. And they've redone my studio and we have all these new things that we're doing. And so like I was taping a segment or a podcast yesterday with an author named M. William Phelps, who I think I mentioned on last week's show. He's one of the very few people in this Karen Read saga that has the cojones to actually like stand for what's true and what's real. And I was taping his segment. I'm going to tell you all about that and tell you about, we're on verdict watch now, basically. And my stupid camera, the stupid Canon software just like fritzes out like after about 10 minutes. Total first world problem. I don't know what Canon's deal is, but it's annoying. Okay. And then another first world problem. I come in today and I forgot my stand. I forgot my headphones. I forgot so much stuff. I'm like this because we were traveling last week to LA and I got some first world problems on that too and some observations on life choices, let's say. Steven, what was your first? Steve was like, I've had a morning too.
I did.
And he said, oh, this is such a first world problem.
It is. I have a beautiful Mustang GT convertible.
Nice.
And I've been having problems with the roof lately. And I could not get the roof to close, to go up for like 15 minutes. Made me 30 minutes late. And then when I got into your regular production studio, nothing worked. Like
the one I like.
The one you like.
Yeah.
Not the good one.
I'll say this. The lighting, we set it up today where I'm like, okay, I'm blown out good. The lighting is good today. I'm okay. Yeah,
good,
total first world problems.
Total first world problems. My car roof wouldn't close.
My Maserati's roof was not going up. Okay, we went to LA last week for my good friend Yvette's, what we thought was an engagement party. Yvette was in my wedding. She's one of my favorite people on ever. Conservative, just light, and she's just darling. And let me tell you something, when we lived there, Yvette's one of these girls that like every guy was in love with. Like every single last one of them, of the people we knew when we were living in the South Bay. So we thought this was an engagement party. And it ended up being a secret wedding. Wow. Yeah. So she had texted me at like 6 o'clock. She was like, hey, come down to the room before, you go downstairs. And I didn't see it because I don't ever have notifications on. And complete surprise. Like, amazing. But here's the thing I noticed, okay?
A lot of broken hearts.
Not so much broken hearts as broken bodies and faces. Well, let's put it this way. There are people who stayed in the South Bay and people who left the South Bay. And the South Bay, if you're not familiar with LA, is this area near Redondo Beach, Manhattan Beach, Hermosa Beach. It's a beach community. It's a bubble. You don't leave. I have not seen these people in like 15 years. I left in 2009. When I tell you there has been no personal growth, I am serious. The women that were there, I mean, some of them were ghoulish. And, when you see someone every day, you don't recognize the changes. And then, someone like me comes along, I'm like, oh my God, like y'all need to quit drinking, like, or something, like something. And I'm like, what do these people even do for a living? The way they were dressed, it was like, it was the exact same people, same drinking level. Just, it was wild, you guys.
They're living the life forever.
They are. And none of them have husbands, or I should say very few have husbands. The ones who have husbands tend to have left. And I certainly didn't think I was going to get married ever. I mean, Fred's like, you're a special kind. Yvette didn't think she was going to get married either because she's, she don't like anybody either. But we both, weirdly enough, get married within 2 months of each other. We got engaged within 2 months of each other, got married within 2 months of each other, both at hotels. We were just like, let's just do this at a hotel and be done with it. So congratulations to my dear, dear friend Yvette. Okay, we're on verdict watch for the Karen Read trial. Now, I am very perplexed by this Free Karen Read movement. And I've talked about this before, and the reason this case is fascinating, it's a pretty cut and dry case. Like, she did it, okay? I'm not going to go into all the evidence. It doesn't. Go watch it for yourself, okay? Actually watch the trial and watch the documentaries that have been made and look at the inconsistencies and look at the random craziness of this whole thing. I was listening last week, and I'm re-listening to it because I'm obsessed with this, and I'm like trying to listen to things that validate that I'm not crazy. The podcast 34 Fairview Road, listen to it. It's by a guy named M. William Phelps. He's a true crime author. If you're a murder porn person like me, you'll be like, I know that guy. Like, I know this guy. You'll recognize him. So I had him on my podcast on Tuesday. And I uploaded it to Apple and Spotify, iHeart, if you're listening on those platforms. Anyway, it was like remarkable to me because I said, it's not that the case is complicated, because it's not. What's wild is how the people that support this woman have like lost their damn minds. Like the way they viciously, and I mean viciously, vile behavior from people towards witnesses, towards people who were just trying to help, first responders. It is shocking, I tell you. Shocking. And so when I put this podcast out yesterday, and I uploaded it to my video channels and stuff, by the way, at Angela Box Show. Everything is at Angela Box Show now. The way people came after me, too, was crazy. It's like, you don't have a leg to stand on, so let's torture these people. I mean, it's similar tactics to like what Antifa does. Doxing people, saying the most horrible things. And, these are MAGA people. These are people on our side. And they're insane. They're literally insane. And this one guy, this Turtle Boy character, who figures in quite prominently in this case as one of Karen Read's flying monkeys, another narcissistic sociopath. Like, they're both sociopaths. She's an in-denial alcoholic, sociopath, narcissist. He's a sociopathic narcissist, too. He's one of her flying monkeys. And the way people are, like, riding and dying for a woman who would not spit on them if they were on fire is wild. The way people are attacking people personally, even MAGA people. And MAGA, here's MAGA's problem, is that they're in it for the conspiracy angle. Like, they're like, it's a conspiracy. They framed her. I'm like, no. There's too many moving parts for that to happen, okay? Occam's razor is, she did it, okay? Anyway, we're on verdict watch. I don't know. I'm very, very worried about this. It's going to be another hung jury, but the Commonwealth has said we're going to keep prosecuting her until we get a conviction. And I hope she's not going to get acquitted because, hey, guess what? Lizzie Borden, Casey Anthony, and OJ got acquitted too. So put that in your pipe and smoke it, Karen. Karen. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Angela Box Show. You guys, I have my buddy, our friend of the show, Mike McCormick, fantastic author of the Substack Midnight in the Laptop of Good and Evil. He worked in the government for a long time. He knows a lot of stuff, you guys. And I wanted to bring him on today because there was a recent declassification of some very serious information that the left is trying desperately to avoid. Welcome, Mike.
Hey, Angela, great to be back with you.
Always good to have you. Okay, what's going on? Because this is like, duh, told you so.
Well, yeah. Kash Patel has turned over to Senator Grassley in the Homeland Security Governmental Affairs Committee records that there were, I think it was 50,000 fake. There was a border customs seizure of in 2020 in August of some 50,000 fake IDs that were sent to America to create fake ballots.
And they were sent from China.
From China,
Mm-hmm.
from the Chinese Communist Party. That was definitely the Chinese Communist Party affecting the outcome of the United States election in 2020 to benefit Joe Biden.
Mike, I'm confused because I thought they told us that was a baseless conspiracy theory.
Yeah, and we knew it wasn't, and we said it wasn't, and we knew Joe Biden was a fake president, and I wrote books about it and talked to people about it, and finally now we got the Hunter Biden laptop out and showed all the evidence out of that, and now finally, the FBI just happens to find this with the new FBI director in charge.
Yeah, it's
so
very...
we're starting to scrape away at, the crud that's been hidden behind, out of sight.
Yeah, out of sight, out of mind. It's kind of, I mean, again, the timing's interesting. How a couple of weeks ago, maybe it was just a week ago, Kash Patel said, hey, there was a secret room on the 7th floor that they were hiding a bunch of stuff in, and they were hiding it from the American people. Stuff like this, perhaps. When you understand that, I mean, those of us who understand clearly what COVID was to get rid of one guy, and it was to get the mail-in ballots and to get the drop boxes, so they had to set this thing up somehow. You've discovered some very interesting things that have to do with the connections to Fauci, Obama, Biden, Lisa Monaco. Tell everyone about that. Like, let's build the case, shall we?
Yeah, I mean, this discovery in 2020 is actually sort of the end of the process. I mean, that's like the smoking gun at the end of the conspiracy. But the conspiracy began almost as soon as Donald Trump was elected in 2016. So November 2016, and I have this documented in my book, An Almost Insurmountable Evil is the title of the book. There's more to it, but just mostly that. In November 2016, Trump comes in. Obama's Presidential Council of Advisors on Science and Technology, PCAST, comes out with this big warning about an impending pandemic that's coming, and we have to ramp up our gain of function research. Well, that was all done to get something changed that had been frozen. Gain of function research had been stopped so that it had all gone into China. They were doing gain of function research in China, in Wuhan, at that time. And then in 2017, January, just before Trump comes in, they had meetings in the White House where the scientists and Obama and Lisa Monaco, who was the Department of Homeland Security advisor to the president, said, you know what, we've got to reinstate funding for gain of function. And that's what Fauci did. The thing is, they changed the name of it. It wasn't called gain of function anymore. They officially came out with this little sort of memo, and they said, oh, yeah, we're not going to call it gain of function anymore. We're going to call it pre-pandemic planning or something. They had another moniker for it. Yeah. And so that's
very Orwellian.
Right. And that's why when Rand Paul said, did you reauthorize did you fund gain of function? Fauci goes, no, I didn't fund gain of function because they changed the name of it.
I did not know they had changed the name of it. And so all of this, again, done to get rid of one person. And I've thought this, conspiracies are very tricky things because some people want to see a conspiracy behind every door. But in this case, I look at it like all of these people were doing things in tandem that they may not have, they don't know what the other lane is doing. They just know what they're doing in their lane. I think
Right.
there's probably a very small group of people that were running this thing, and then they had their, lieutenants work on that lane, whether it be mail-in ballots or pandemic or whatever, or like even Chris Krebs, saying that this is the most secure election of all time. I remember very vividly. I don't know if you watched the cybersecurity forum that Mike Lindell, who has been maligned like almost no other, put on. I watched that entire thing, and I remember seeing the back and forth, like what we know happened with the Voldemort machines. The Voldemort machines, I don't say that name because I don't want to get sued for $1 billion, but the Voldemort machines who were switching votes or helping to facilitate the switching of votes, you can see back and forth these lines of, the votes going from Pennsylvania to China, and it was mainly China, Russia, China, and Iran, if I'm not mistaken. Do you remember that?
Yes, and I know Serbia had a lot to do with that. And specifically to what you're saying,
maybe Russia
so
didn't. I'm not sure. I could be misspeaking there.
I don't think it was Russia, but the people at the top. What you were saying about the people at the top, Joe Biden was certainly one of the people at the top, and this evidence, this new evidence that Kash Patel has released, comes from China. Joe Biden met with the president of China, Xi Jinping, in January of 2017, days before Trump came in Davos, Switzerland, at the World Economic Forum. It's the only time that Xi has ever gone there. And he goes there, and Biden goes there, and they meet. And they never really told anybody what they talked about. But days after that, they've already got gain of function reinstated. There is gain of function research going on in the Wuhan Institute of Virology. And Ron Klain, who eventually becomes White House chief of staff for Biden, he, I think, was the brains behind the Wuhan pandemic. He goes to Georgetown and does an event with Fauci. And Fauci gets in front of an audience and goes, there's going to be an outbreak in 5 years because there's a surprise coming, and there'll be a pandemic outbreak in 5 years. And this was a quote that was emblazoned across the mainstream media during the shutdowns and during that time to make Trump look bad. But what wasn't really said was Ron Klain with the same thing, and he pointed directly at Trump for cutting funding for the global viral surveillance program they had. It was funded by USAID, that where the money was going to China. That's what they were all discussing at the World Economic Forum. That's what they discussed with this Georgetown University Forum. And all this money was our money, our taxpayer money, going to fund a program that eventually changed the outcome of the 2020 election. It's disgusting.
Yeah, and it's so multi-layered. And I think that's why they've been so successful. When I say they, I mean the deep state. They've been so successful thus far because it is so multi-layered, and it's hard to pin down anything. But I think we're starting,
Right.
I think with this revelation, which of course the media was in lockstep with all of this. I will be very curious to see as time goes on, what did the media know and when did they know it? I mean, were they just getting talking points from Democrats and from Fauci saying, all of these things are a conspiracy theory, all of this idea that, the election could be swayed is crazy. And people forget that the election was determined in the 6 swing states. And it was determined by, in some cases, fewer than 10,000 votes, I think, in Georgia. So It's going to be very interesting when we come to find out what Brad Raffensperger, what Brian Kemp, who hate Trump, were up to. It's not, it's not just Democrats. It's the people who hated Trump. And what in the AF does Trump, when Trump got in 2017, and he got to see everything, he knows it all. What in the world are they so scared of? What in the world is he getting ready to drop on them? And this teasing out of things that he's done through the years, I don't know when he's going to drop it all, but I've got to think that he will at some point. Maybe he's just going to be like, it's time. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, one of the things, so he comes in 2017, but he's working with people all around him who are bad. There is a lot of deep state around him. One of the deep state people around him that was very important to all this is Mike Pompeo. Mike Pompeo
Which
comes in and he's
pains me because I loved him at the time.
Yeah, he turns out he's a bad guy. And I did love him too, but he was a bad guy. He was in charge of the CIA. They were promoting a company called Metabiota that was a pandemic predictor. They were part of what Joe Biden was involved in, what Ron Klain was involved in. Hunter Biden was an investor in Metabiota early on. And so Pompeo puts them in getting investment funds from the InQtel, which is CIA's venture capital fund. And then
Whoa. The CIA has a hedge fund?
Yeah, it's not a venture capital. It's it's an investment program. InQtel, they invest in up and coming tech companies, and they basically buy their way in, and then they control them. And so they did that with Metabiota. They did that with Google, and they did that with a lot of them. Palantir is part of it. A lot of Silicon Valley is sort of under contract to the CIA.
Well, I mean, this is a real rabbit hole. It's a real rabbit hole, and we're gonna be peeling back the onion for quite some time. I want you to come back as this goes on. You're doing great work, and I'm very proud of you, and I'm proud to know you. So tell the kids how they can find your Substack.
Substack is Midnight in the Laptop of Good and Evil. I've got books out on the Wuhan pandemic, on Joe Biden's crimes. Author MikeMcCormick.com. And I'm on X as @JoeUnauthorized. @JoeUnauthorized.
And I have to say, when I started subscribing to you, it was because you realized that Dick Cheney was flying over the place where they eventually found bin Laden like 2-3 years before they found it. It was very suspicious, and you were working in the government then. So that's that's a rabbit hole. Very interesting.
There's another one. There's more coming.
There's another one. All right. Mike McCormick, Midnight in the Laptop of Good and Evil. Awesome name, by the way. You're listening to Angela Box Show. We'll be right back. Fun fact. Did you know that Perry Farrell of Jane's Addiction used to be a gigolo? Used to be a male prostitute?
I did not know that.
This tracks. Perry Farrell's cool, man. And I love that he's honest about it. He's like, yeah, I did it. Like, Jane's Addiction. What a cool band. I mean, like, crazy. I'm sure they're crazy,
see them
but
in concert on their last tour.
Was it good?
It was very good.
Yeah. They're in fights right now. They're having fights with each other. Like Perry Farrell and Dave Navarro are fighting.
That's the suckiest thing for any great band.
I know. It's like, stop. Just make your millions and millions of dollars. Like, everyone loves Jane's Addiction. Like, anyone that's a certain age, like, I'd go see Jane's Addiction. Like, hell yeah, I would. Anyway, get it together, boys. Okay, so as I mentioned, I went to LA last weekend, and Fred was freaking out. He was like, I don't know if we should go. I'm like, listen, the freaks are nowhere near LAX, and they're nowhere near the beach, okay? He's like, but they could. I'm like, well, yeah, they could, but they're not going to, and they didn't. But LA is just, Brian Wilson died last week, and there was someone wrote a really good article. My friend Nick sent it. I haven't read it yet. I shouldn't say it's good, but I'm assuming it's good because it basically was like the California that Brian Wilson sung about has been dead for decades, and it's 100% true. California is awful, okay? Unless you're in a little enclave where you have enough money. It's like New York. If you have enough money, anything's great. But just random regular people, it's awful, okay? And when we y'all, here's a first world problem. The traveling, let me tell you something. My high school reunion is this weekend. I'm not going to tell you how long. I probably will later. But we're going to drive to Oklahoma City. And I said to Fred after this marathon, 12 hours each day of traveling, plane, missing the flight, all these things. I said, from now on, if it's 10 hours or less, we're driving. Like, that's it. I don't want to deal with flying. I don't want to deal with any of it. But in LA, of course, they are part of the hotbed of the riots and the fiery but mostly peaceful summer, and they're really trying hard to get that band back together. But the polling is not working out for them. Okay, which to me, I'm like, keep going. It's just like Free Karen Reed. Like they're so vicious and vile. It's like you should keep saying that. Like keep doing it. Okay, keep proving what detestable human beings you are. And again, you can have whatever opinion you want, but you shouldn't attack someone personally just because they have a different opinion. Anyway, point is, in LA over the weekend, they had their little No Kings protests, and they had their No Kings protests throughout the country. And there were no incidents really. It was mostly peaceful. But what was so funny about it is that I went on Isaiah's show this week on Monday, and I debated my friend Cesar Espinoza, who's with Fiel Houston, and they're like, radical pro-illegal alien thing. And Cesar, to his credit, he was always very honest. He's like, I'm illegal. I'm like, this is how little he was worried about being deported, like ever, until Trump. Is that he was like, I've been here since I was a child and I'm illegal. And I'm like, well, obviously we're not taking immigration seriously. Obviously we're not doing anything serious with illegal aliens. But he recently got his green card, whatever. So he's like not worried about being deported anymore. But he said, and I thought this was really interesting, and this seems to be the party line. He was like, No Kings. It was just like so peaceful and so organic and just grassroots, like people speaking out against what's going on. It's like, well, first of all, completely not grassroots, not organic whatsoever. It was more astroturfing. It's the people that did the Tesla takedown. It's the people that did the BM riots. It's the same. It's the Free Palestine losers. It's the transgender, like, let's mutilate children. It's the same people. Like it's this tiny. Well, I shouldn't say tiny. It's a 30% of the population, probably 30% of the country that is just insane. Okay, so no, it's not organic, and evidently about 198 of the usual suspects organizations were funding this thing. And the corporations that are down for this, $2.1 billion, a bunch of U.S. aid money, a bunch of our money being funneled to these groups. They're fomenting all this outrage and fomenting an actual insurrection and a real invasion of our country. So, but like I said, they should definitely keep this up because the polling is not going well for them. Even in polls like Morning Consult, which is a terrible poll, they've got Trump's approval, I think, at 43, disapproval at 50. But on immigration, he's got net approval. Like, people are like, keep going. And people like Rasmussen, on the other hand, who I would submit to you is an actual reputable poll because they've gotten within 1.5% on the last, at least 2024 and 2020. Like, they got it. They nailed it of the presidential election. But their polling is showing Trump at 53% and record levels of Black and Hispanic. Like, more Black and Hispanic people support Trump than white people. Let me repeat that. More Black and Hispanic people support Trump than white people. Okay? Among men, it's like 53, 54%. Women, 49%. So this idea that these little protests these leftists are doing, again, that aren't organic, they're completely coordinated and planned and all these things. The idea that this is helping them is just simply not the case. But they're going to keep going. They're going to keep going, and they're going to keep doing. And they, I think in their heart of hearts, they really want a George Floyd moment. They really want one of these protesters to get killed. Like 100% they do. Because then they could get behind, like, oh, look what the cops did. Oh, look what Trump did to this poor person who's just protesting for immigration rights. And let me just stipulate this. Are there any hot leftists that are protesting? Can you find me one single hot leftist? I'll wait. Like, I will wait. Like, find me one that's not in Hollywood. And frankly, Hollywood is, there's a lot of magic they can do with makeup, let's put it that way. The Hollywood celebrities that went out are the usual suspects, like Mark Ruffalo and the old crone Susan Sarandon and what's her face, Cynthia Nixon, the most unattractive ginger lesbian you've ever laid eyes on, one of the most insufferable lesbians in the country. She and Rosie O'Donnell, I think, they could have an insufferability off. Okay, the two most insufferable lesbians in the country. So Cynthia Nixon's there, and she's holding. And you guys, if you're not, first of all, let me give a shout out to Maureen Callahan and The Nerve. If you're not listening to her, you need to be. She's awesome. Okay. She had this, she's hate watching And Just Like That, which is the Sex and the City reboot, which I promise you, it is the worst thing you've ever seen. It is, I hate watched the show Girls, Lena Dunham. Hate watched every second of it, but at least it was somewhat entertaining and interesting. The first season of Just Like That, they shoehorned every single woke thing you could possibly imagine. Like Charlotte had a they-them daughter, and Cynthia Nixon all of a sudden became a lesbian because she's a lesbian in real life. And, they killed off Big. They put in, random black characters because Kim Cattrall stayed well away from this thing and looks like she made the right choice. But, HBO needs to make money. So for whatever reason, people are watching this thing. And it's hate watching. People are hate watching this thing. So Cynthia Nixon was out there, and she had, she posted on her Instagram. Now, keep in mind, this woman is worth millions and millions and millions of dollars. Okay. She held up on one of her Instagram posts. She's like, the only minority we should be scared of are the rich. It's like, heifer, you're rich. Okay? You're rich. Anyway, it's not going well for them. This was people are like, what does this no kings thing mean anyway? So, of course, they're freaked out about the immigration thing, but they're saying Trump is a king, but yet Barack Obama, the first black president, deported about 2.5 million illegals. And did anyone say boo about any of this? No, of course not. Obviously, Joe Biden opened up the border and let 20 million come in, but, Obama was low-key deporting people. And I would stipulate he probably deported some families, too. Keep those families together. And Obama, lest you forget, Obama's the one who built the cages for the illegal aliens, the famous cages that Trump just utilized. Anyway, they're saying Trump is a king, which I don't really get, because it was the Democrats who told us during COVID, you're not allowed to go outside. You have to keep your mask on. You have to get a shot in your arm or we're going to fire you. They set up hotlines throughout the country to snitch on their neighbors. They told us that if we don't stay 6 feet apart, we're killing grandma. And if we don't get a shot, that we're killing grandma. And they told us we couldn't go to the funerals of our mother. Y'all, my mother died on election night of 2020. She pieced out. She pieced out the second they started shutting everything down. I was in the hospital room watching the election. I hunkered down with my mom. Everyone else had gone home. And I was like, well, Mom, we're going to see what happens. They're going to steal this thing. And what do you know? Like, when they started shutting everything down at 10:30 Eastern, my mom was like, I'm out. But anyway, my point is, we couldn't have her funeral for 2 months. Couldn't have her funeral because of COVID. So who is the king again? Who are the kings? Who are the tyrants? Oh, it'd be you, leftists, as always. But you're not very bright, and you'll do as you're told. You get your marching orders, and again, it's the Ukraine flag. It's the Ukraine flag and bio people. It's the tranny people. It's all the same people. Speaking of trannies. Oh, I'm going to say that for the fourth segment. Here's one last thing about this, the No Kings thing. The left is demanding. They put a bill up in the House, or some radical leftist senator said, we need to make sure that ICE agents don't have masks on. It's like, but what? I thought y'all loved masks. I'm so confused. I thought you loved masks. No, the reason that ICE and Border Patrol are wearing masks is because you're threatening their lives, okay? You're doxing them. You're attacking their families. You're basically free Karen Reed. This is what they're doing. And so, no, that's not going to go anywhere. So, all right, one more segment. You're listening to the Jill Box Show. Steven, I have a tickle in my throat. And Fred, I've taken 4 ivermectin today, which means I'm probably going to die. But Fred was like, you're going to roll down the window tomorrow when we're driving. I'm like, I don't think that's going to help. But I love my husband dearly. He's a bit of not a hypochondriac per se. Like, he doesn't think he's sick all the time, but he's like, he does a lot of preventative stuff, which I appreciate. Don't get me wrong. When I first walked into his kitchen, I mean, both of us have like supplements for days. I walked into his kitchen and I look at all of his pills. I'm like, oh, this is a guy after my own heart. Because anybody else would be like, this man is insane. Or this woman's crazy. Look at all of her pills. Like, my pills. And I'm like, nope, he's my boo. He's one of me. Real quick before I get to the tranny stuff, DC Drano had a really good take on this. And this is another reason why we must have mass deportations. Have to. It's not just that we know that they're voting, which a lot of them are, 100% they are, because they get, why else give them driver's licenses? Because motor voter. But it's also congressional apportionment. And the more, because Democrats have fought very hard to make sure that illegal aliens are counted just the same as citizens in censi, whatever. The 2030 census, if millions of illegal aliens are not deported, the blue states will have, if they are deported, if let's say 5 million are deported, small number out of the 50 million that are here, whatever. And please, if you think it's only 20 million, like you're smoking as much crack as allegedly Barack Obama did in the back of a limo with Larry Sinclair, as he pleasured him. My point is this. Congressional apportionment is determined by the census. That's what the Democrats are fighting for, okay? So here's DC Drano's take. It's estimated that there are over 830,000 farm workers in California, and more than 75% of them are illegals. Cesar Chavez is flipping in his grave. That equates to roughly 622,000 illegal aliens taking American jobs at cheap wages so that big ag executives can rake in more profits. Now let's say each of them brought their wife and have at least 3 kids. That's at least 5 congressional seats. Do you see the scam? Now, Trump earlier in the week, well, he's reversed himself just now. He initially was like, hey, we're not gonna do roundups on farms and factories and all that stuff, and we're gonna let them stay. And everyone's like, I didn't vote for that. I did not vote for that. Well, he heard the message, because he quickly reversed himself. So here's what needs to happen. The Republicans need to put a bill together to reinstitute temporary worker programs. Like, no one is denying that we need people to work these farms, but maybe pay them a wage that's a little more than $20,000 a year. And then, they have to then suck off the taxpayer teat in order to function in the world today. Like, that's what's good. That's the scam. And President Trump evidently heard MAGA loud and clear. It's like, okay, never mind. As Gilda Radner, as Emily Littell would say, never mind. Okay, so let's get to some tranny news. This is a good one, you guys. Sometimes the Supreme Court, we have to slow clap them. I mean, they're afraid of like doing anything super, super hard because of the left would lose their minds. But this one seems like a pretty cut and dry case. Okay. There was honestly, let me look at this. Here's what happened. There were some states that were kind of banding together to make sure that they could not mutilate children and send puberty blockers into their bloodstream and all those things. And of course, leftists were like, no, we should be able to give a 13-year-old girl a mastectomy, a perfectly healthy girl. Like, why not? And the Supreme Court's like, no, you can't do that. So they sided with the states on this. And this is going to put quite a damper, I think, on the child mutilation industry in the country, which, never forget, Tucker Carlson had this when he still had a show. Man, let me tell you something. Screw Fox. Like, that was such a blow to lose Tucker Carlson. Such a blow. Anyway, Tucker had this I don't know if it was undercover video. It was a woman from Vanderbilt, a doctor from Vanderbilt, bragging that essentially each one of these surgeries costs $40,000 that they get to bill to the insurance company. And then for the rest of these people's lives, they have to be on cross-sex hormones. So I'm sure that has nothing to do with them pushing this onto children. If you're an adult, do whatever you want, like mutilate yourself, like knock yourself out. But you can't do it if you're a child. And you can't have like psychotic parents that, want social media clout for mutilating their children. The parents that go on Instagram and TikTok and they're like, hey, this is my child. It's my child, my trans child. And they just came to this on their own. I don't know what happened, but I'm so proud of my trans child. I don't want to say what gender it is, but yay. Anyway, so yay. And during Pride Month, I might add, slow clap. Okay, let's discuss a couple more things before we go. My husband will not like this. I just saw a breaking news. Jerome Powell, who's the head of the Fed, who would bend over backwards every single time Joe Biden economy was tanking, which was all the time. He's like, let me lower interest rates to help you out, Joe Biden. Trump's like, it would help to goose it a little bit. And it would help people maybe refinance their homes that are at these crazy high rates right now. No. He's like, nope, we're going to keep it as it is. So it's like a good news, bad news. Like, I guess if the economy was completely in the toilet, which it's not, to be fair, it's not. The stock market's basically recovered all those losses, even though my husband is still dealing with, climbing out of that just like every other trader is. He said, $11 trillion was lost when the tariffs hit. That's a lot to recover from. But Jerome Powell evidently doesn't think it's enough to lower the interest rates. And Jerome Powell's an interesting character because he looks like an old man, but he sounds like a surfer boy to me. Like, he's got a young man's voice. Like, every time I hear Jerome Powell, I'm like, is he like 25 or 30? But he's not. So President Trump obviously wants him to leave, but he can't really fire him because there's really no cause for it. But it's so obvious. He's like, oh, I made political. It's like, no, you're not. Like, stop. Like, please stop. You're in the deep state just like all the rest of them. Okay, let's discuss this Israel Iran stuff because I'm pretty excited about this. Now, MAGA, of course, does not want an endless war. And I think that they're misconstruing what's actually going on here. Never forget that Obama, when he was president, made a deal with Iran. And the deal was, we're going to give you like $750 million cash. Just like, here you go. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Don't use it for terrorism. Gave them 700 or something in like obscene amount of money. Pallets of cash dropped off. We all know this. And then they said, well, Iran is saying, they promised, they pinky swore that they're not gonna make a nuclear weapon. Like, they're not really even interested in that. They're just like getting this uranium going, to do like nuclear power. Like, stop being so paranoid. And they promised for like 15 years they're not going to do it. So what's the big? Well, obviously, anybody with two brain cells to rub together knows that's functionally retarded to think that the number one world sponsor of terror is going to not develop a nuclear weapon. I don't care what Tulsi Gabbard has the intelligence clowns telling her. They 100% are. So Israel, this last few days, is like, yeah, we've had just about enough of this. We've had just about enough of Iran sponsoring Hezbollah, sponsoring Hamas. We had a little thing called October 7th happen where Hamas murdered people up close and personal. And, you've got the functionally retarded among us who are like, free Palestine, free Palestine. Israel's a terrorist state, whatever. They're like, yeah, we're done. We're done here. So they went in last week and they hit the nuclear sites of where Iran's like saying, oh, we're not doing it. But yet Israel was able to find them and knock them out. They also knocked out a few of the worst human beings on the planet. Some of Iran's leaders, some military leaders, some nuclear leaders. And, even though technically the United States, this isn't the United States battle, like, come on. Does anyone really think that they would have done this if Trump was like, it wouldn't be the worst thing if you knocked out their nuclear reactor sites? Just saying, like, I'm not going to, like, say you should, but, if that's what you choose to do, I mean, Israel, you are being threatened, which they are 24/7, like, do it. Now, MAGA's freaking out about this, thinking it's going to be an endless war. Y'all, it's not going to be an endless war. Like, this needs to happen. These people, these mullahs since 1979 have been a boil on the ass of humanity, okay? They need to be dealt with, and dealt with swiftly and finally. And that is what President Trump is hands-offing it with Israel doing. Okay? So let's all wish for the end, finally, of the Ayatollahs in Iran, because the Iranian people have had enough of these lunatics, Everyone's had enough of these lunatics, except the Free Palestine people, evidently. So, go Israel. All right, that's my time, everybody. You've been listening to Angela Box Show. Until next time, everybody, keep kicking ass and taking names. Peace.